My name is Ethan Pierce. Built a bunch of companies in France, in the US, France, and Singapore on the digital marketing and e-commerce side. Was in venture capital for a while, and now I have two things: Borderless Ventures, which is actually based here in Tallinn, but I live in Paris, and the NFT Factory, which is the kind of ecosystem headquarters for French Web3. Turns out a lot of Web3 has happened in France, and so 128 of us from Ledger and SoRare and the Sandbox and Artifact and a whole bunch of other companies created this physical hub for Web3. And then other things, there's lots of cool stuff in that space, but mostly what I get to do to bring kind of a funnel of opportunity to what I do is I get to come and talk to great, fascinating people, learn, and hopefully maybe transmit some of that to you so that you can get some value out of these things. So I speak at like 80 conferences a year, so I pretty much live on a plane, but it gives me the chance to have wonderful discussions and learn things. So thank you, Ashton, for the invitation. It's always good to be a part of what you build and what we're doing. So I'd like to welcome Edilson Osorio Junior, who, well, cybersecurity expert, wrote science fiction, you know, we don't say influencer anymore, so maybe KOL, because you've got this big show in Portuguese, in crypto. So I'll let you maybe explain what you do, but all kinds of different things around the subject of privacy and security, because you've been in cybersecurity for the past like 25 years. Yeah. So I'll let you maybe present yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, Ashton. Thank you again. And Christina for sure. And Christina for sure. Well, I'm professor, computer scientist, and I'm in cybersecurity for 25 years, as I said. And well, I do a lot of things in that field. Even like I am privacy advocate every day. And then I have my show, The Morning Crypto, is teaching people about the importance of self-sovereign privacy and not like letting your keys or your crypto on exchange, something like that. And self-custody is pretty important to us. And I try to teach people through my classes, through my show, and educating people around the places, and even in my book. Through a fiction, a cyberpunk fiction, I try to teach people the importance of privacy as well.
I loved the, so it's the Chronicles of the Code Guardians, the origin of Titan. And we'll not spend too long on the subject, but one of the things I love is there's actually a second author of his book. His name is Gerard, who couldn't be with us because he's your bot that you made that helped you write the book, but you also have like a whole bunch of bots that just do lots of stuff for your companies and what you do.
Yeah, I have Marcello and Isabella. They help me to cut and doing clips and viral clips from my videos every day. I have the Gerard, my co-author in the book. I trained him in 2022, and then he helped me to write the book. I have some of the bots helping me with the translations, with the voices in my show. I am surrounded by bots with a lot of artificial intelligence as well. And because of that, I can run the business almost by myself. Instead of having a lot of people or a huge team, I have a very clean team with me and bots doing almost the hard work.
So one of the stories that you told me, I think we can go back to kind of get us into this thing of privacy and security. So we're going to talk about two main things. One is just the privacy and security conversation in general, not really a Web3 version, and then how does that become a Web3 concern? Yeah. So I think one of the first pieces of this was, so you got into Bitcoin early, 2011. Yep. Your first blockchain company, I think, was around 2015, I think you said. And so in Brazil, you built this company that was doing lots of things using the blockchain that eventually pissed off all of the notaries and the digital certificate authorities who were selling services. There were threats on your life, and you left Brazil. What was that?
Here I am in Estonia. Probably one of the biggest tricks was putting my image in front of the company. If I was like an unknown doing an anonymous project, it was okay for my life. But at the time, I was the CEO of the company, and I built something in blockchain to preserve the privacy of people, but giving power to the people to authenticate, to sign things, to prove themselves in institutions like notaries do in Brazil. They didn't like. Then they started to stalk me in events to say, oh, you can't say this is not good because our friends, they don't like much. Then they became more aggressive. And in the end of 2017, after I came from New York, from Consensus, they started to be more and more aggressive. In the end of the year, my lawyers, they told me, you should leave the country because it's not safe for you, for your life, and for your company. They will try to block, to stop you using all the tools they have.
So I think the Web3 piece will bring an interesting, if we come back to that. So what are your thoughts, though, looking at your background on these couple decades in cybersecurity? Where are we at in terms of privacy and security individually today, but not necessarily Web3, but just in general? Our phones, all the things we do that we're giving our data to, social media, all of the, everything we're looking at with AI, and what are your just general thoughts about what it means to be private today? Can we have privacy? Can we use all these things that we want to use? Can we watch our Netflix? Can we order from Amazon? Can we have our life and yet expect a sense of privacy from that?
Yeah, no company will provide privacy for us. We need to build or try to get our privacy back with all tools they are available. On Web3 or outside Web3, we are giving up our data all the time. Even for AI, all the time we are going to ChatGPT and asking to do something, we are just giving data and giving more data. If you are connecting our GitHubs on Copilot to help devs on doing their things, it's reading the environment of our applications and getting even the API keys and passwords. We are trying to make it secret. They are having access because we are just giving them all the information. So the information is going to GitHub, to Microsoft, and ending with OpenAI to train the machine learning and the models. So it's very important to us to understand what is happening, what kind of data we are willing to give, and how can we protect ourselves from giving too much information to them, because we don't need to provide that much of information, even for our transactions. If you are in the blockchain space, we can use a lot of tools to provide privacy on our transactions. Because, well, we have curtains on our windows, not these windows, but in our windows, because of something. We were closed because of something. Everyone has something very personal they don't want to show. It's not because I have nothing to hide. Everyone has something to live in the personal aspect of their lives. They don't need to give up all the information all the time. And the companies, they are making a lot of money on top of our information, selling our information. We have no control about where are our information right now. They are being processed with other information. And on Web3, maybe we can be in charge of what information we are giving up, to whom, and for who, what they will do with that information.
So I think for those of you that are devs and building things, but also if you're here more on the entrepreneur side or wanting to build tech or startups and without necessarily being the dev, one of the topics that we have there's two big topics that we have in Europe because of GDPR compliance. One of them is privacy by design. So as a developer, you can build your solution to respect privacy from the get-go. So we're not talking about building something and then thinking about how do I now respect people's privacy with the thing I've built. You actually build it intentionally to respect that. So you've got things like embedded AI in hardware products, so it doesn't actually have to send information out to the cloud. So there is no, like if you speak to your coffee pot to say, hey, make me some coffee, it doesn't actually have to send all of your conversations to Amazon to finally figure out when you asked for coffee. If they put an embedded AI chip into it and it just understands a few things, one of which is make me some coffee. Like there's all kinds of ways that we can build tech that respects privacy by design. And that's really important as devs or even just as the entrepreneurs behind projects to realize that you can do that. And that's going to become a value add in significant ways for people because people are going to look more and more for solutions that have privacy by design baked in. And then just this idea of in Europe, we have something very much around data sovereignty. And what that means is you want, for individuals for sure, but if we're talking about sovereign things like countries, for large corporates, they want all of their data to stay in Europe, and so they're not using necessarily AWS or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure or Huawei or whoever for their cloud computing and for their AI infrastructure if they need that to stay in Europe. They're using companies like OVH or Scaleway or DigitalOcean or other companies that if they only have data centers in Europe, they can't accidentally spin up another Kubernetes cluster that happens to be in Virginia because you clicked the wrong button. And all of a sudden you just spent $2 million in GDPR fines because you fucked up and your intern made a mistake. So like that's really important to be thinking about data sovereignty as well in that context. But moving from the regular tech space just into Web3, you already kind of touched on it. What is this idea of what can Web3 do more for us, or maybe also more important, what are the risks in front of us for everything that's Web3? And by Web3, we can throw in crypto and blockchain and whatever we want to talk about. One of the obvious ones we talked about is CBDCs. Yeah. But how can Web3 help to protect us by abstracting some of that information? But then also, what are the risks?
Yeah, I think we have two verticals to work with. Identity, it's a pretty important place to improve the privacy. And the second one is privacy on our transactions. They are two different things and two totally different spaces to work. On the identity side, we can decide what data from our attributes we are delivering to whom, and for what. It's very important, and we can use zero-knowledge proofs. That's old cryptography technology and protocols, but they are being implemented right now in identity, and it's very important. So instead of giving away my birth date, the entity will just ask my identity. Is he over 18 years old? And the cryptography of my identity will just answer back, yes. Or has he more than 30,000 euros in the bank account? Instead of giving up my statements and all the informations, the entity just asks my identity, and it will answer back, yes, he has. So on identity side, we can have attributes, working with attributes, and those attributes with zero-knowledge proofs, then we will have more control about the attributes we are delivering. And they will be trackable. So if the company sells our data, we can track the selling or where our data is getting into, where the final place where it is. And the second part is for transactions. If you want to have privacy on the transactions we are doing, we have many tools, and privacy is a right. It's not wrong, like using privacy tools to have more privacy on your transactions. For example, if I want to do a donation for Ukraine, just an example, I really don't want the Russians in that case tracking my donation to myself here in Estonia. So it's not wrong. If I'm doing some job for someone in another country, he doesn't need to know everything I have in my wallet. So using tools for improving the privacy on your transactions, they are good. Sometimes they are used by bad people, but I think the criminals should be tracked through an investigation by the government. They can't, it's not correct, like forbid our rights for privacy like they are trying to do. Like here in Europe, they are trying even a new law to put backdoors in every software that has encryption, of any type of encryption, to have a way to access the data being transacted over there. And I hope it not pass, but they are talking about it. Here in Europe, in the United States, in Brazil, all the countries with CBDCs, they are trying to have more control and more access to the data we have, and it's up to us to protect our privacy as it's our right.
So I know not everybody who's participating in this weekend is coming into it as a Web3 degen or blockchain or crypto person. A lot of you are coming here to also learn about that. Have you heard of a CBDC? Raise your hands if you know what that means. Okay, well, that's actually interesting. Good. So central bank digital currencies are basically just, when we talk about Bitcoin or other cryptos that exist as currencies for means of transfer of value, the idea is, well, why not have dollars and euros that are just digital, like Bitcoins, and if so, those would be sovereign, so that would be the US or that would be Europe that would create these digital currencies, so central bank digital currencies. What's the problem?
Well,
Problems.
Yeah, problems, and a lot of problems.